Congratulations.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the BPU Board Regular Session Meeting of August 2nd, 2023. I'd like to welcome everybody in the room with us tonight and or viewing online, listening online. Reminder that this is being recorded in both audio and video format. As always, there is a public comment section at our board meetings. If you're here in the room, please use the sign-up sheet over at the executive assistance desk. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature on the bottom of the app. Each member of the public that wishes to speak, please provide your name and address and direct your comments to the board only. And you have a maximum of 5 minutes for those comments. This is a reminder that all comments made are public. The board cautions any visitor to not disclose confidential information in an open session, to not disclose account information about an account that is not in your name, and staff will not provide individual account information or history during an open meeting for confidentiality reasons. As always, members of the public may also call or email BPU with questions or concerns. Tonight's agenda and presentations may be found on the BPU website on the board meetings tab. If you're using Zoom, they will appear on your screen. I'd like to remind everyone this is a business meeting of the Board of Directors, and we will conduct the meeting accordingly. The following rules apply to this meeting. Every person in this room will act respectfully toward one another. Personal attacks and accusations toward any person will not be tolerated. Please state your specific issue or comment to the board only. And attendees shall refrain from side discussions or individual commentary that interferes with speakers or other attendees at this meeting. If a side discussion is necessary, please take them outside of the boardroom. If any of the above rules are breached during this meeting, individual breaching those may be subject to removal from the boardroom. I'm Rose Mulvaney Henry, member at large, position 3, and I'm the current board president. Other members of the board and staff include Bill Johnson, general manager, Tom Groneman, 2nd District and current board vice president, Bob Mylan, 1st District and current board secretary, Jeff Bryant, 3rd District, Mary Gonzalez, member at large, position 1, Angela Lawson, the acting chief counsel. Please put your phones on silent this evening if you haven't already. The microphones are all around the room. They're very sensitive and can pick up and record comments from anywhere in the room. Before we begin our meeting, please rise and join me reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Angela, may I get roll call, please?
Roll call. Haley. Mylan.
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry.
Here.
Bryant.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Groneman.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the regular session agenda for August 2nd, 2023?
Move to approve.
Aye.
Second.
The motion to approve this evening's agenda has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Mylan.
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry.
Aye.
Bryant.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular session of July 19, 2023? And before I entertain that motion, I will ask if there are any corrections to those minutes.
So moved.
I second.
The motion to approve the minutes of the regular session of July 19, 2023 has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mylan.
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments this evening? There's nobody signed up. Rob, is there anyone online? Okay. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. First on the agenda, general manager staff reports. I'll ask Lori to come up. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight we'll go over the second quarter financial results. Oops, sorry. But first, we'll look at our electric usage year to date through June. We are seeing our residential down below our 2022 levels by about 2%. Commercial, we're seeing good growth in our commercial. It's up about 2%. Industrial is down a little bit, about less than 1%. So overall, just slightly below our 2022 levels. On the water side, we're seeing usage above 2022, both in our residential and commercial. Residential's up 5% as well as commercial, and then our industrial is down slightly below 2022 by about 2%. For our revenues through the second quarter, we're seeing we're up about 6% over 2022 second quarter, which is about 4.8 million. From a budget perspective, we're up about 3%, which is overall about 2.5 million. Electric is up about 2.3 million, while water is up about 200,000. So electric overall is 3%. Water is up about 2%, so combined about 3%. From a year-to-date perspective, we're up about almost 7% year-to-date over 2022, and about 4.3% over our budget. Electric's up about 5%. Some of the categories, customer classes there. So residential's down about 500,000. Commercial's up almost 6 million. Industrial's up about 870,000. Our schools are up about 600,000. Our wholesale is still down about 1.6 million, but we are seeing improvement in that in July as we look at closing out July. Overall, water is up 2%. Residential is up about 300,000, while commercial's up about 470,000. Industrial down about 150,000, and their water's wholesale is up about 120,000. On our expenses, looking at the second quarter, we're up over 2022 levels by about close to 9%, or about 6.3 million. From a budget perspective, we're up about 7%, with electric being up in overall expenses by 5.4 million. Water is down in comparison to budget by 400,000. So that's about 9% on the electric side and 4% on the water side. 4% down on the water side. From year to date, we're up about 11% over 2022 levels. We're up 3.3% over our budget. We're above budget by about 5.9 million on the electric side, or about 5%, and about 1.2 million on the water side. We're down about 6% there. So on a combined basis, we're up about 7%, or 4.7 million. We have completed through our June, we've recognized 4.8 million of additional expense from our 2022 third and fourth quarter under collection on our ERC. Looking at our operating expenses, without depreciation. Overall, we're up 11% over 2022 levels. We're up about 3.5% on a combined basis over budget, with 5.5 of that being on the electric side and 1.2 million of that below budget on the water side. Comparing some budget to actual, purchase power is up about 2.2 million. Our fuel is down about almost 9 million. T&D is down about 1.5 million, and G&A is down about 1 million. All of the categories in water side are down below their budgets, about 700,000 production, 300,000 T&D, about 160,000 G&A. So our overall change in net position just for the second quarter, actual was a negative change in net position of about 2.6 million. Electric was about 4.4 million negative, while water was about 1.8 million. And we had projected to be at a negative 80,000 for the second quarter. Year to date, we're at a positive 5.3 million, with 1.8 million positive on the electric side and 3.5 million positive on the water side. We had budgeted to be about 2.9 million from a year-to-date perspective. Looking at our 10-year trend through June, revenue slightly above our expenses overall. So we're about 154 million in revenue, and then about 152.6 million overall in operating and non-operating expenses. On the water side, revenue was 25.4 million through June, while expenses were overall about 22.5 million. Our average daily collections, so we're collecting about 1.7 million a day through June. That's slightly higher than in previous 2 years, and that trend has consistently been throughout 2023, and that's representative of our higher ERC that we've encountered through the last 6 months. And then our cash comparison. So we had a drop of cash about 2.2 million. That's halfway in between. We dropped about 4.9 in 21 and about 75,000 in 22. So we are getting into our periods here of July through about October, some parts of November, where our positive cash will come around, and we've already seen that in July. We've had good positive cash in July, so and that's hope to continue that through the summer period here as we're getting into the billing of the summer. And overall, so our cash dropped from 61 days to 57 days. We did recalculate our average day of expenses. In previous months, we've estimated about 750,000. And so with a lot of our fuel and purchase power dropping, so we're averaging about 625 to 675,000 a day. The graph here is just looking at our historical days cash on hand, and the trend in the last couple of years. And then this chart is indicative of both our days cash and our change in cash dropping, and that's historically what has happened. There's been some anomalies sometimes in which our change in cash and days of cash have gone opposite direction, but they're both trended down. Some of our balance sheet items there are fuel. So we have about 10.5 million of fuel inventory that as of today was about 86 days of coal. We still have our bond dollars. We did do a draw here just a couple days ago on the 2016 C, so we're spending that down. Hopefully we'll spend both of the bond issues down here before the end of the year.
Question, why do we have more money in 23 in the bond issues than we did in 22? 7.3 to 7.
Oh, interest.
Interest?
Yeah.
So we're drawing interest on,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So when our idle funds,
good.
Yep.
Lori, did you say that we intend to have both of those emptied by the end of the year?
we're trying to get done, it's, we always have to think about we have to do arbitrage calculations.
No.
With the interest rates being so low, it's always been negative arbitrage and it's no impact. But as interest rates are rising, we don't want to risk, having to pay out because of that. So,
Okay,
and I think we can get that done. The 2016 C were related to the transformers, and those have come in. I'm using them really fast now, but so we're being able to draw. I think we drew down about $500,000 just the other day, but we anticipate we can get the rest of them. And then the other is related to the Rosedale project. So on our capital spending, so we have an overall budget about $61 million. Electric has about 30.7 of that. They have spent 10.8 so far year to date. Water has about 25 million, and they have spent about almost 7 million overall. And then we have about 1.4 million that we've spent in common, which is mostly our technology area. So we have 69% of our capital budget remaining. Some of the projects that been working on, the Fisher Underground feeders, which is I think how we relate to that now, is the Rosedale Underground feeders. We've spent about 2 million. Our annual programs, we spent about $1 million on our underground and 825 on our overhead. We continue with our distribution pole inspection program. So we spent about almost 800,000 there. I think electric production is doing their burner coal nozzle replacement. So they spent about 2 million in water. They continue to work on their system improvements, their valves and leaks of 1.7 million. And then the Argentine tank replacements, they've spent 3 million through June. We still have reimbursement out with KDHE. So we're waiting to get some of our funds that we've expended already back to us. The last slide is our debt coverage. And we're at a combined level of 2.84, with 2.74 of that on the electric side and 2.19 on the water side. Looking at it without pilot, we're at a combined of 2.10, 2.0 on the electric side and 1.71 on the water side. So that has been improving over time, and it's always good, especially when we're looking to borrow a little bit more money. Any questions? I'd ask for approval if I could.
I move to approve the quarterly financials.
this is Jeff, I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mylan,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Haley,
Haley,
aye.
that motion still carries.
Rob, you can go back to the agenda, please. So the board knows we've gone through few storms here recently and, you know, conversation with Rose the other day, we talked about be a good time to go through storm restoration procedures, talk about the, outages we're currently or just dealt with and some of the ones previous to that, I think Jeremy covered. So Darren, if you want to come up.
Hey, out of the gate, I just want to apologize. I didn't realize we were gonna have another storm right after Bill and I had that discussion, so.
Yeah.
I know you haven't had a lot of sleep, Darren. I apologize to you and Mike both.
Well, that's all right. And I was gonna say, I have to clarify, this is the July 14th storm we're gonna talk about, so. Can I control this up here or? No, it's fine. So, excuse me. So what I was gonna talk about a little bit was, again, the July 14th storm, just a little overview of that. Show a picture of our outage map kind of during the worst of it in case you didn't get to see it. Talk about our, system restoration process, how we go about that in a general sense. And then what our other priorities are for restoring service. And then Mike Fergus is going to come up and talk a little bit more about the specifics of that storm, our team, how we handled it and responded to it. Next slide, please. So again, yeah, July 14th, we experienced a severe weather event, which I think we talked about this last time, but it was the largest service interruption we've had since the ice storm in 2002, I believe it was. So biggest event we've seen in quite some time. And our best guess right now is about 38,000 customers interrupted total, at the height, which is, about half. And then we had a total of our 19 of our main distribution feeders. Those are the breakers of the substations, our main line feeders going out. About 19 of those were open during the storm. Next slide. And again, this is a screenshot of our online outage map. I'm sure you were probably watching it as closely as I was the entire time, but just to give you another kind of look at that, and every little dot there is an individual outage. So, you see larger areas, you can see it really was from one corner of the county to the next that we were affected. Lots of large areas, lots of smaller areas within those that you really can't even see there, because we could get one large area on and then there could be a neighborhood that still had tree damage or storm damage, and those people were really a separate outage. So that's kind of what it looked like and what we were dealing with there. Next slide, please. So this is just in general terms. So when we have an outage of this magnitude, this is kind of our process, our priorities for getting through the system. So the first thing we start out with is our transmission system. If we have a big widespread outage and we lose a lot of our transmission lines and substations, and our system's compromised, that has to be our first priority. Besides needing to maintain the integrity of the grid, we also can't start loading back up substations if we're, got lines missing and we can't supply the power. So as part of that, we're talking like our tie lines, near-min generation. Those are some of our priorities to make sure our power supply is stable and that our system is stable so we can move forward. Beyond that, we move to our distribution substations. If we have, any kind of event there, maybe we lose a whole substation or part of that substation, that's going to be a top priority because we're talking, thousands and thousands of customers probably off that one facility. So that's one outage we're going to try to resolve immediately. We did have a few of those during this event. We were pretty fortunate that was, was minimal, and we were able to kind of deal with that while Mike and his team were working on all our main distribution feeders. Once our substations transmission are stable, we move out to our main feeders, those breakers at the substation, we're looking to get those on. That's the big 3-phase lines, running down the main streets, the big lines. That's what we're trying to get on first. And, that's going to get the largest number of people on. I mean, that's kind of our whole goal here, as well as the largest amount of customers on, as quickly and with as, little effort as we can. We're going to get up to those big areas and work down. Moving from there, our distribution laterals, that's, if you see a line that branches off and it runs to a neighborhood and feeds, a neighborhood here, a neighborhood there. After we got those main feeders back on, we're going to start working on those, trying to get the big areas out, trying to get the neighborhoods back up. And then once that stuff's handled, that's when we go down to individual services and homes. So, I know sometimes it's tough for people. They may see a truck come in the area, do something and then leave, and then their service is down. And that's because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these big areas back on first, get as many customers on as we can. And then we've got separate guys coming in after that, smaller crews that are going to deal with the services and individual homes, things like that. Next slide, please. In addition to that, just that general process I talked about, we've got a lot of other priorities. Obviously, excuse me, hospitals and medical facilities are going to be some of the first things we're going to try and get on, try and make sure those are intact. Also, our Nearman water treatment plants, other water treatment plants we have in the county, wastewater plants and wastewater pumping stations. To make sure those have power so we can keep our obviously supply of water going, make sure our wastewater and sewage is handled. Public safety facilities, call centers, 911 centers, police, fire, that type of thing, any emergency shelters and cooling centers. Obviously nursing homes and assisted living facilities, there you have people who can't be easily evacuated from there, and hospitals. We're trying to get those back on, trying to take care of those people as quick as we can. We also have our list of customers that may have, medical issues or some kind of health concern. So we're, they're priority in our system. We're trying to get those back on. And then also we have to prioritize when we get a report that there's a wire down somewhere, or some kind of emergency call, it's a fire, anything that could be some kind of a public safety concern. We have to respond to that as quick as we can. So, what's tough is there's no one, that's not really a list and priority. That's everything we're trying to manage. So we're trying to get big areas on, while also making sure we focus our attention on all these things, these hospitals and critical infrastructure that we have to have. Yes, sir.
On the a wire down and stuff,
Uh,
do we still have the protocol that the police or fire department go and like babysit that wire until staff can get there and make sure that it's
Yes.
the area is secured?
And for this, Mike will go into a little bit more, but we had a lot of extra staff in as well. And that was some of the things that they were doing as we had those wire down calls. They'd go check those and they would stay there until we were sure it was safe, or we get a crew over there to take care of it. So, yeah.
So
Yes.
Is this a priority system that we use when something like this happens? This is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
No, it's not really in a particular order. These are just all the things we're trying to watch out for. So that's what's tough with an event like this. We're trying to manage all these things. And I said, there's no one more important than the other. We're just trying to do our best with all the calls we're getting and all the things we're trying to handle.
And Bob, that's what I was going to jump in and say as well. Darren's doing a good job explaining it. But in a storm like we went through, they're trying to look out for all these things at the same time, because each one of these priorities may be going on or happening at the same time. So they're really stretching our crews, stretching our management staff out there to try to address,
should be number 1, how
I'm
that
sorry.
goes. Homeowners feel that they should be number 1.
Yeah,
That's the
but
important
I mean,
to have. And my point is,
all of these could be affected by a widespread storm at one
well,
time.
they gotta understand that. That's what need to be explained. The public doesn't understand and know exactly these priorities takes place before we start
Right.
taking care of next door.
Yeah, and that's the tough part is obviously, you said, we do have customers have medical concerns and they're contacting us and we're trying to get them. We really are. We just, with 38,000 customers out, there's them, there's the hospitals, there's everything on that list happened during that storm, obviously, and then some. So we're trying to, manage all that the best we can and get to everyone as quickly as we can.
Well, see, that was probably the biggest problem we had here recently, because the public didn't understand the magnitude of how severe it was. They didn't understand it was 38,000. They thought it was just my block only. So
Right.
it's kind of hard to tell somebody that it's different than that. So,
Right. Yeah, and that's, I think people that understood New York crews working hard, our staff was working hard, and we were trying to do the best we can. And it's tough if you don't know that, obviously, and your power's out for days. It's tough. And we understand that. And obviously we're trying to get to everybody. So there's no other questions on that piece. I'm going to turn over to Mike. Mike Fergus is our director of electric distribution and services. He oversees all of our linemen, line crews, our troubleshooters and trouble board, metering, traffic signal, street lights. So he's got, a big chunk of the service center. And obviously all his staff was involved in this. So he's going to come up and talk about, more specifics of how we handled this storm and kind of how everybody pitched in, and also show you some pictures of damage. So he was really kind of the guy marshaling everything, for the most part. So he's going to come up and go through the rest of this.
Thank you, Darren. Good evening. So the first slide we're going to talk about is everybody knows that we took a devastating hit of a storm that was not predicted. There's really nothing we could have did, but this slide here with our work orders, we had over 500 plus 540 work orders. And if you can see the damage area, there are most dense populated areas. I think that was the biggest obstacle that we had to overcome. We had to work in a lot of property lines, a lot of older neighborhoods. There was a lot of 100, 200-year-old trees that were toppled over by 85-mile-an-hour winds that are typically only associated with a hurricane that came through Kansas. So it was a struggle, but kind of I want to explain some of our restoration procedures and the people that really stepped in and worked to get this done. Next slide, Robert. So our response team is we have 140 employees at the Electric Operations Center, and not one person didn't have a hand in this. Every single person stepped up in one way or another. Our first place is our ESDC Center, our Emergency Service Dispatch Center. That's the heart and soul. I don't have the numbers now, but they took thousands and thousands of calls with minimal staffing. They were very professional, the diligence, and they were very organized. Everything that comes through them is dispatched out to our crews and then dispatched to them to close it out. So they are the heart and soul of any storm that we have. After that is our superintendents, Derek Spears, Paul Howe, Jeremiah Waldack, and Jeff Sanders. Jeff Sanders actually was on duty that day. They did a phenomenal job, worked as a team. It was amazing to see. We talk about having 19 feeders out. If we have 2 feeders out in one day, it's a big deal. And 19 was devastating. It was a massive storm. After that, everybody sees our line crews. They're the first people on site. They're our first responders. They're always the ones that you hear about, and they deserve a lot of credit. They're the ones putting the wire up. They're the ones working through the night, working in the heat, the cold, the rain, whatever it is. Our linemen were fantastic. They did everything we did, and they worked as hard as they could till the last person was on. Substation engineering and mapping kind of really worked to get out in front and really help to get boots on the ground so we could identify problems, get them back to the crews so we could help out. They stepped up and they were phenomenal. Storeroom in our fleet, they're always there. Every storm, they work 24 hours. So they're always there. They're always there to assist us. Storeroom is delivering material, filling orders. Fleet is there just to make sure besides our employees, our equipment is our next valuable thing that we have. So we got to keep them going to keep the lights on. Our office record teams, they pretty much step up after the storm's over. They have I don't know how many piles of paperwork they have to go through to organize this, but one thing they do with Mandy and the girls over there, they are phenomenal. They start working every bit of that storm to get ready for a FEMA claim, hopefully that we can recover some money. So they took over and they were great. Carpenters assist the line crews. They were phenomenal. Our light meter department went house to house. They were the ones that were showing up at an individual's house, giving them direction, letting them know what they need to do to be able to get their lights on. Traffic signal, radio cable, lended support every chance they get. They were great too. One part of our system that we don't talk about much is our ECC, our Energy Control Center. With 19 feeders out, they, with Jeremy Petit and his group and Matt Klein and the system operators that night, they lended like a cool, calm, professional head. They actually brought to a situation that could be very stressful. They brought a calm feeling. They were very organized, and I can't say enough for them. They were rock stars in the whole thing. They kind of managed it. Took us about 7 to 8 hours to get all the feeders back on, and it was a lot of radio traffic, and they just kept managing it one by one. Next slide, please. Additionally, to the 140 people we had over 100 mutual aid assistants. Very uncommon for us to ever call mutual aid, but with a storm of this magnitude, we reached out for our partners in Kansas with the KMU, Kansas Municipality Utilities, and McPherson, Clay Center, and City of Pratt showed up. Sent 11 linemen up there. Very professional, respectful, knowledgeable. Couldn't say enough of them. They did a great job. They really helped us out. Capital Electric is our line crew that is on property all the time. They reached out to Oklahoma and Arkansas and pulled up, I think, 40 linemen from those states to come help us. It was great. Without those, I don't think it was a 5 or 6 day storm. I think it was 8 or 9. I mean, we needed those fellas and people to help. Asplin, I think they had 10 crews on site, about 35 to 40, pulled in additional resources. We only keep, I don't know, 4 or 5 here, and then they brought in about 5 or 6 more to help out. So they did a phenomenal job assisting. Next slide. Just give you a little bit, a snippet of what our damage was. As I said, reports of 100, 200-year-old trees toppled over. You can see some of the tree damage here. We have a program, vegetation, very, very aggressive vegetation program. And we trim back 10 feet clearance on both, or 5 feet on both sides, 10 feet. But these wasn't 10 feet. These were 75, 80, 90-foot trees that were falling over. Trees that have withstand, storms forever, just toppled over and took trees down, poles down, wire down, everything. It was a major event. Next slide, please. Over 50 poles were damaged during the storm. In a typical Kansas weather day in a storm, we might get 3 or 4 or 5 of them. 50 poles was extraordinary. And we had to go, house to house to get them, figure them out. It was a major event. Next slide. With the 85-mile winds, this is a little wind damage that we have. One thing we don't think about, so when a lateral or a fuse blows, a lot of times it's just the wire slapping together, blows the fuse, and we go fix it. Well, this here, it pretty much started galloping the wire, tangling the wire up. We had cross arms broke. It was something that is not typical, especially with some of the distribution feeders that we have, that the robust build, but it couldn't withstand the winds that we had. Lightning damage. I forgot to mention our lightning. we had to change out 10 transformers because of lightning damage or whatever happened. It could be a tree come down, broken pole. But this is one that took a direct hit. This is pretty, I don't think I've ever seen one get hit this hard. I'm sure this was environmental and Ingrid nightmare. So they probably didn't enjoy this one, but that's the devastation of some of the lightning that came through. Next slide. So just to go back to our crews, they work 24 hours a day. The way that we did this storm is our contractors worked during the day and our in-house crews worked overnight. We wanted to give 24-hour coverage, so we worked continually all day long trying to get people's power. And this kind of just shows, hey, they're out in the daytime, they're out in the night, they're out in the weather. The one thing that I couldn't stress enough is we didn't have one vehicle accident. We didn't have one safety issue and not one injury of this entire storm.
Mhm.
And I think that shows the dedication, commitment, skill, and knowledge and teamwork more than anything of the group. I think that's something I want to stress is that when this storm hit, I don't think that I've ever seen BPU electric operations work together more as a team than this one here. And it's probably the biggest event that I've been involved in, and hopefully it's the last event. But I feel very proud that I know that when times like this happen, we have people that will step up and help the community. Next slide. And I just want to thank you. It's not a one-person show. The support of Darren McNew, Jeremy Ash, my bosses, and all the people at Electric Operations. Couldn't did it without them. They were fantastic.
So one of the questions I got asked more than once, but I wasn't exactly sure if I have the right answer on it, was, sometimes were there dedicated crews like I know that there are voltage lines that are higher than others, the distribution. So were there crews that were specifically only, they were the only ones able to handle some of the more higher voltage lines, and then others were able to be more,
No, all our crews are qualified crews. That's having at least one one qualified observer and 2 linemen. So every crew that we had could handle any situation out there.
Yeah, Mike, again, I do apologize to both of you guys. I know everybody's still really tired, so thank you. And this really is probably more of a question for Bill and maybe Lori, but just looking for an estimate. When things like this happen, hear a lot of people say, well, if we had everything underground, right? Had everything underground, this wouldn't happen like this, right? What's that additional cost, Bill? 2, 3 times? I mean, truly,
Alright, so I'm gonna go back in time, and excuse me, but this is dated information. Okay, so probably 15 years ago, we sent crews down to Springfield, Missouri. They had a big ice storm. Springfield's come up here to help us too, okay? And at that time, their board was asking, the public was asking if Springfield would underground all of their system, wouldn't that help during ice storms and things like that? So the person I was working with at the time, requesting information, I asked them, did they ever do any analysis around undergrounding all of that, and what was the outcome? At that time, it was just to get their primary circuits on the ground and to go across the whole city was about a $3 billion project. Okay.
Yep,
3B.
3B.
right.
Okay. Now this was
15 years ago.
15 years ago. So
Mhm.
if you bring it forward, we can do the escalation and kind of come up with that number. And there are cities like in Colorado, for example, that have ungrounded Colorado Springs, Fort Collins. They've done 95 to 98% of all of their services underground. But that came basically because the public wanted that, and the way the utilities handled that was, okay, well, they're going to go out and bond finance this, and it's going to be a rider on their bill that the community is going to have to pay for it for the
Right.
next 40, 50 years.
Right.
Because it's going to take that loan underground. So all of us knowing what this community can afford and what this community cannot afford, I cannot ask our community or our board to support that type of undertaking, spending that kind of money. If the other part of the question is, where are the areas that are hit the hardest? Probably state of Florida, state of Texas, everything along the Gulf Coast. That gets torn down repeatedly, and they go back above ground just because of the cost of undergrounding everything. So
Right.
it's very, very expensive.
Right. No, and I appreciate that. It's just, I'm confident other board members have heard that as well. But this really, and you hit on it, Mike, not everybody can see sort of the collaboration between the internal departments at BPU and the BPU employees, the contractors, obviously. People don't get to see that, right? You guys do. You guys get an up close personal view of it. We don't even get to see that. But certainly we saw some aftermath of it. And, Jaron, I'm glad that, obviously they're recognizing you as well, and your organization as a calming influence, throughout this process. I personally am very proud that you guys, got this community through this particular storm and the one after it. I don't know if we're all the way through it yet, but I know we're close. And I just want to thank you again for y'all's leadership for all the folks throughout this. So thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't mention we were contacted by other departments for help too throughout BPU. It just wasn't just electric operations reaching out, as the water department and others that reached out and said, what can we do? So it was definitely a collective effort.
Kind of just gave me goosebumps.
On the outage map that it was shown, most of the damage was done east of 435, showed very little damage west of 435. Was that because the storm was centered east of 435 or because of the infrastructure west of 435 more buried?
I think there's several different variables to it, but the older communities have the larger trees and the larger trees took the damage. West of 435, 20, 25 years ago was farmland. They're barely new communities. There is more underground out there, but you got to go overhead to get to underground. So they did have some facilities that were damaged, but the concentrated of it did hit the north east to southeast of our community where the storm came through the hardest.
Am I correct? That's about the three lines that we had to consider: cable, telephone, and BPU. That's about three lines. Okay, so responsibility for the cable lines and telephone, we make sure that they are taken care of along with our own lines.
We contact them. Yeah.
Take care of their property.
Yeah, we will contact them. We will rehang them if it's something we can do, but we're more concentrating on the electric lines to restore power. But it don't matter if it's Google, AT&T, or whoever their contact is, if there's any damage to those cable lines.
I want to kind of follow up on Rose's line of questioning about the underground. So one of the things, my district is almost all overhead
Mhm.
and it suffered quite a bit, both storms. And a lot of the conversations I had with people were that the easements are filled with just junk trees that have grown up and people aren't not maintaining them. So that caused a lot of concern and issues.
Mhm.
But in a scenario where we were to go into Turner and decide we're going to bury our utilities and it's going to run along the easement, and most of those are in between the backyards of houses and stuff, would we still suffer issues if just the loose trees start growing again in that area and grow down into our services? How would we, or how would a city, maintain their clearance and right of way to be able to get into a service if people are not maintaining the trees along those easements?
I think we would still maintain our easements. If it's an underground service, we will still maintain from certain, say enclosure to enclosure. That's ours. That's what we're going to take care of. So it'd be a different kind of vegetation management. It might be with mowing or other things, but we would definitely maintain those.
So Jeff, there is another huge consideration of this, and this is what we got in the conversation we had with the UG over Leavenworth Road, and we got to a compromise position, but we're gonna go from overhead service to underground, then that's gonna require the customers to have to take that service underground, and it's gonna push a lot of costs back on those customers who are not asking for that. Okay, so that is something that also need to be kept in the back of our minds. If BPU is going to mandate this, or it's going to come through the unified government or through any other regulatory direction, then the customer is going to suffer because they're going to have to probably upgrade their services. They may not be to the latest standards. They're going to have to take underground and assume all the costs associated with that too.
Yeah, and then on Leavenworth, we took our larger voltage lines, we kept them above ground, right? And then just took the home service and businesses underground to try to minimize our total investment into that. Is that-
Yeah, and we also kept the overhead service drops to the homes and businesses in place. We did leave more distribution above ground than what the UG originally had asked us. They wanted us to bury everything. So
Yeah,
that
I
was the
remember, I
compromise we
remember the
reached.
compromise.
Well, I'd like to see a report you just presented to the public. They need to know exactly how you explained to us tonight severity and the hard work that went into all the person involved, like the tree trimmers 40 or more, and the linemen that came in from other areas to help us out. I think the public needs to know just how involved the magnitude of that storm.
Yeah, absolutely. We can work with Dave and his group and get a press release out, or Dave can take the lead on that.
Oh, no, I feel like you two are gonna be in a YouTube video soon.
Are we?
May as well be.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are the ones telling the story.
I have a question or a comment, I guess. I don't know if it's a question so much as I got a kind of frantic call from somebody that lived kind of in my area as saying that the people next door to her didn't understand something was wrong with their meter. Their power got restored to everybody but them. I mean, something was wrong with their meter, but they were Spanish speaking and I couldn't help. And I felt bad, but I heard that meter damage more this storm than I've heard in the past.
I would say that's true. I think that there was a lot of limbs that came down. Some of the poles that were damaged, they came down in customers' yards and pulled the pole over and broke it. So there was a lot of house services. I think at one time when we were restoring, I think there was like 400 services that we were replacing the individual homes.
I didn't really know where that came from. And, you know, with storm damage, I can't really get involved in that anyway, which I was trying to explain to the neighbor that was down there, but it was kind of being lost in translation, which I felt bad about too. So I was just wondering really about the meters.
David, did you have something?
Actually, thank you. It's kind of answered. Bill kind of answered it. I'm wondering about the replacement costs that once the lines are above ground, so we can't do the entire system. Understanding it's cost prohibitive, but as we go about replacing the system, would it be a hybrid possible to go with the existing overhead and then to replace? I mean, does that even work? That's how
Oh,
little I know.
In some
Have an
systems,
overground and then an underground hybrid system.
yeah, so in some systems, with our standards that we've been working on for the last, 15 or 20 years, we have a little bit better robust distribution system. If you've seen over in Mary's area, there's a lot of Hendrix wire, concrete poles, steel poles, so we're kind of transitioning to that. But yeah, some of the upgrades that we have had, it's a lot of times, like, Bill has said, it's on the customer to decide to go underground. It's going to be additional cost on them.
How cost prohibitive would it be? I mean, if there's a region or an area that is heavily treed, like the older parts, it has heavy foliage.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't have that
I
information
mean,
right now,
but you say it's on the customer, but it wouldn't be
to their house,
it would be to the neighborhood. Wouldn't it more so be like for those that are transformer to transformer and not per individual house?
Yeah, we don't have those costs right now. I mean, we could give you some cost estimates if you'd like.
Oh,
Yeah,
at some point. Thank
Other
you.
thing to consider, I mean, this is an older community and where we have some of our poles and cable. The other thing that would have to be looked at in addition to all the costs, and here's another cost item too, is we don't have proper easements to be able to take a lot of our infrastructure underground. So when you go out the newer parts of our city where the streets are wider, they put a lot of right of way or easements in place to let all utilities operate within those areas. You get into town, you got curbs, sidewalks, the streets that are very close to the road, and then the property but right up next to it. So there's not a lot of room for all of us to work in. So when you think about undergrounding, it's not only the electric utility, but all the telecommunications, all the cable, everything else is going to have to go underground somewhere too. Because if we don't have poles above ground, there's not enough other poles for everybody to connect to. And that's the challenge with working in an older city that has limited amount of space to work in.
And I just know that this board and this utility made a proactive stance for redevelopment or those areas that are land banked or that going back into development that are, I think you said east of 635. I wasn't here at the time. That wasn't it didn't have my support. But if those costs are taken into account for those areas that are going to be redeveloped, there's a lot of land, vacant land that's being land bank bundled. As we look at the redevelopment of that land, I mean, people that are going to be moving into what will be market level valued homes would probably want to have the most streamlined or most access, especially for those new services, just consideration as we're putting them, not to put up any more poles, or to find a policy in those areas that are new developments, especially in older neighborhoods like east of 635, to consider putting them in underground from the start, since we know that it's rife with problems. Anyway, just
The other thing, I mean, like Bill said, there's some areas where it's just not physically feasible. You know, and there's some areas where it is. The other thing to keep in mind, I mean, besides, the approximate cost figures, I mean, you're talking 3 to 4 times the amount of money for an underground service as an overhead service, probably as a rough rule of thumb. And, you know, then there's lots of other considerations. Underground is not a perfect solution either, I would say, because while it's resistant to storms like this, when there is a problem or equipment failure, it takes a lot longer to find it because everything's underground. You can't just drive it out and look at it, right? And then also a lot longer to repair it. So there is other trade-off there too. Just something to mention.
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Job
Thank-
well done.
Thank you, gentlemen. So next I have, Jeremy's not here tonight, so this comes up annually. Angie, do you have a copy of it? In the book, okay. So every year, by the Western Fuels bylaws, there's a request that we come to the board with on approving people to the board, delegates to the board of directors for Western Fuels. So tonight I'll ask for approval for me and Jeremy to be delegates to that board and Jaren for T to be an alternate. I don't actually have the resolution number or the paperwork. I've just got. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I have it.
So Chris or Angie, if you can help me with that, I appreciate it.
It's resolution 5288.
5288.
Yes. So do I have a motion to regarding resolution 5288, which is a resolution appointing delegates and alternate delegates to 2023 annual meeting of the Western Fuels Association?
So moved.
I second the motion, Bob.
The motion to approve resolution 5288 has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll,
But point of order, just want to ask a discussion, where and when is it?
I'm sorry.
The annual meeting?
Yes, where will it be? and
It will
when?
be in Denver. So they are located in Denver. Western Fuels is an organization that we've contracted to help manage all of our coal delivery, railroad contracts with the mines, and all of everything necessary for transporting coal from the mines to our Nerman power plant. And they not only work for us, they work for many other utilities, both municipal and cooperative utilities in the country.
And
Yeah,
we
no.
usually have 2 people on the board and 1 alternate. That's the routine usually.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just curious as to where it's gonna be. I don't know if it's in Bora Bora, but also, when will it be? Is in,
Well, the next one is the end of August is
of
the
August.
meeting that we meet about every 2 months, somewhere thereabout.
mhm. Okay, all right,
Some virtually, some out in Denver, so.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam
Uh-huh.
Chair.
And in terms of our meeting, they pick up all the costs for that too, so. It's no cost to BPU.
Motion to approve resolution 5288 has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
roll call Haley,
Aye.
Mylan,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, I don't really have any miscellaneous comments for tonight. I was gonna circle back and see if there's anything that we still need to do in terms of that we didn't accomplish in the work sessions or the policy section on roads. I do know that Still need to make a decision on what order and what plans we have going through the rest of the policy discussion. So I'll if you want to answer that, or I can send an email out, or how do you want to proceed with that?
Yeah, I don't know that the board has the list of additional policy reviews that the committee would be conducting in front of them tonight. I know that Bill sent it out to everyone. I guess what I would ask is, we're looking for an order of priority next. We have concluded the review of the board policy. We will be coming back to the full board with our recommendations on revisions there soon, very soon. Hopefully next couple meetings. Soonish, because I've got a task on it. But and so the list that Bill sent out, please send your input to Bill and Angela regarding your order of priority on the next set of policies that you would like the committee to review and then go to the full board. If y'all could do that by the next meeting, that would be really helpful. If you could do it by next week, that would be really helpful. Okay, thank you.
That's all I have tonight, Madam President.
Okay. So we'll go to board comments tonight. Mr. Haley.
Well, thank you, Madam President. First, extend an apology. I didn't know that we had gone back to work sessions today. And so I just did not know that we were having it. So sorry I missed it, because certainly the policies that we're reviewing is a key item for me. And I hope that there'll be some substantive changes in some of the policies that we have that would be more uniform with what other industry standards would be. And I look forward to those being implemented. Also, for the regular meeting, there's a opening of a clinic in the district that I had scheduled to speak in. It went a little late out off Leavenworth Road. And I thought I'd be here in time, but apologize for missing. But I want to thank our staff, Ms. Lori, I did hear, and also the others that had given the update on our financials. I just want to be reflective as much as possible, again, of what I'm hearing in what the public wants, especially post the rate increase that you all just approved. There is still some ongoing concern about customer service. And I just want to underscore that my role here, I see it as being reflective of what the general public wants to see addressed. I'm often not appreciated, Madam President. I understand that in that role, representing the public, but I'm seldom misunderstood. That is a core belief that I have, and the reflection of having customer service enhanced through the lobby is resonant. It continues. Had an opportunity to be out and around during this season and seeing people who are anxious to have us be not only as expensive as we'll be next month or costly, but also more responsive. I would hope that when we look at the policy reviews that we have, as we are looking at those policy reviews, that will be a little more inclusive for our everyday ratepayers. Finally, let me thank, as has been done already, the stellar service that we had, again, as we did last meeting, the response to the storm, time and again. And I learned a lot being here about the relay, going from one to the next and watching it come on. And there was some rough spots, some areas. West Height, for example, which is in the district, was a little bit disconcerting, but by and large, it was a stellar response once again. And I do want to express that appreciation this evening for that response. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Haley, I do want to remind you that you are an at-large representative. So all of KCK is your district.
Yes, Madam President, but Piper has such great representation, multiple representatives already.
Mr. Groneman, I also have the entire city. Mr. Mylan, or no, I'm sorry, Mr. Groneman, excuse me, Mr. Mylan, Mr. Groneman.
I just want to thank Darren and Mike for the presentation on the storm. It was very enlightening, eye-opening, and I want to thank you guys and I hope I hope that it's relayed to the staff, your people, how much we appreciate what they do and that they do a great job. And anything that I can do as a board member to assist or help, feel free to call on me, because you guys are great. Appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, I think we're down a couple linemen if you wanna. Maybe, I don't know
Get
if
my
you-
spurs on,
if y'all have any openings for Tom.
get my spurs.
Mr. Mylan?
Yes, I'd like to thank the linemen too again from the luncheon we had last week to come appreciation for the hard work and the dangerous work that you were subjected to during that storm period. So I couldn't thank you enough for all the hard work that you put into making sure that the public's safety was really taken care of as soon as possible. So saying that, we gotta be concerned about our priorities, and hopefully that we can explain to the public just the magnitude that we went through to get through that awesome storm ahead. So thank you very much for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mylan. Mr. Bryant?
First, I'd like to remind staff that I will be very anxious to see a rebate policy in front of the board next meeting for the most vulnerable citizens for the rate increase. And I really am anxious to see one that is easy to put in place and easy for people to navigate so that we can hopefully have people able to sign up and mitigate that expense by the first bill that they're going to have to pay that'll have the rate increase on it. Secondly, everyone involved in the storm restoration, which appears to be just about everybody, I want to pass along thank yous from a multitude of residents in District 3. While the concerns certainly raised people's frustration levels, and our area was hit very hard, once they were reconnected, they acknowledged the good work done by staff. I personally was impressed at the speed that the outages dropped in our area. It is especially impressive that all of this was done without injury. So thank you, and please pass that along to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mrs. Gonzalez?
I'd just like to repeat a few words that I heard Mike and Darren say in their presentation to us. They were words like phenomenal, incredible, rock stars, teamwork, and worked as a team. Because I felt all those in my heart. And I just want to say that I kind of see my responsibility as I have on this hand the constituents and the people who voted for me and expect me to be their voice here. And on this hand, I have the responsibility of the BPU to all of our employees and to building this this industry and keeping it strong and keeping our workers safe. And so I see that differently, I think, but I see it twofold. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. I know this is going to shock everyone. I don't have any comments this evening. Angela, I believe we have a motion.
The proposed motion for adoption is as follows. I move that after taking a 5-minute break, the board go into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss confidential matters related to employment of the general manager, personnel matter of non-elected personnel as justified under the exception in the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that the general manager, William Johnson, and acting chief counsel, Angela Lawson, be present to participate in the discussion. All others to be dismissed from the room and electronic and telephonic transmissions to cease, and that we reconvene in open session, returning to both electronic and telephonic broadcasting at
7:25. Oh, no, you said 15, 7:30.
7:30
Yes,
to either take action in an open session or to adjourn.
we're going to do 5-minute break and then 15-minute session.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay, that's fine.
I make that motion.
I will second. Jeff?
The motion has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call Haley,
I'm pleased to vote aye.
Mylan,
All right.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
We're now moving into a recess.
I'll make your motion.
We moved to Texasville. I mean, Marlin, Tennessee.
Are we back in session?
Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn? That's,
Make a motion to adjourn.
thank you.
This is Jeff, I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call Haley,
Aye.
Mylan,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.